Have you ever found yourself just suddenly and overwhelmingly obsessed with a brand new hobby?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, an intense, all-consuming obsession. I'm talking about the kind where, it's 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you are 3 hours deep into watching high-level chess tutorials.
Right, and you're absolutely certain you're on the verge of becoming a grandmaster.
Exactly. Or, like, maybe you went out and bought thousands of dollars of professional-grade woodworking gear.
Oh, that's a classic one.
Right, just completely convincing yourself that from now on, you were going to handcraft all your own furniture. Or perhaps you spent a small fortune on custom topsoil and heirloom seeds and specialized irrigation tools because you were suddenly destined to be a master gardener.
You had the whole vision.
You have the drive. You could practically taste those tomatoes. But then, almost without warning, just a few weeks later, the excitement completely vanished.
Like a switch flipped.
Yeah, and the gardening tools are now rusting in the shed. The chessboard is buried under a stack of unopened mail. And that beautiful, incredibly expensive woodworking lathe is just sitting in the corner of your garage collecting dust.
It is an incredibly familiar cycle. And frankly, it's a very expensive one for a lot of people. The almost universal reaction to looking at that pile of unused gear is just a heavy dose of guilt.
Oh, massive guilt. You look at the graveyard of hobbies and you think, I'm flaky, I lack discipline. I'm just the kind of person who can't stick to anything.
Which is how it looks to everyone else, too.
Right. From the outside looking in, it really does look like laziness or like a profound lack of commitment. But today, we're pulling from some incredible research on what's called intellectual hunger, including a brilliant article breakdown on the architecture of intellectual hunger and a companion video called The Intellectual Architecture of Rapid Obsession.
Both are just fascinating deep dives into the mind.
They really are. And our mission today is to prove that your personal graveyard of half-finished projects is not a character flaw. It is actually a remarkable window into how highly intelligent, hyper-aware minds process the world.
Yeah, it completely flips the script.
It does. Okay, let's unpack this. What if your brain is operating on a level of intellectual hunger that most people never even notice?
What's fascinating here is that the conventional wisdom completely misses the mark. I mean, we are absolutely not talking about a failure of willpower or some moral shortcoming.
Right, it's not a discipline issue.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We are looking at a highly complex evolutionary biological cycle that's driven by dopamine, curiosity, and pattern recognition. When we really look at the neurology of these short bursts of intense focus, we see that the brain is fundamentally seeking out a very specific type of stimulation.
And it demands that stimulation, right?
Yeah, exactly. And more importantly, once it gets exactly what it needs from that environment, it ruthlessly moves on.
So we need to move away from the physical evidence, the dusty gear in the garage, and look at the underlying neurological driver.
The biology of it.
Right. We have to understand the biological mechanism behind why that initial burning excitement happens in the first place and why it shuts off like a switch. And the core of this is the curiosity system.
Which is heavily tied to dopamine.
Exactly. And the crucial distinction here is that your brain is getting massive dopamine rewards from the act of learning the rules of the hobby, not from the physical execution of the hobby itself.
That distinction is everything. I mean, dopamine is heavily misunderstood in popular culture. People call it the pleasure chemical, like it's a reward for eating a good meal or finishing a hard task.
Like a participation trophy for your brain.
Yeah, exactly. But neurologically, dopamine is the motivation and reward anticipation chemical. It is the drive to seek out the unknown.
So it's about the chase.
Precisely. From an evolutionary standpoint, the human brain was wired to reward us for exploring unmapped territories and understanding new environments because, well, that kept us alive.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So for highly intelligent minds, the reward isn't the physical act of watering a plant or moving a wooden pawn on a board. The reward is the cognitive challenge of decoding a complex, unfamiliar system. The sheer neurological thrill is entirely in the decoding process.
Which perfectly explains the sudden drop-off. It's all about the mechanics of pattern recognition.
Exactly.
Like when you start learning to play the guitar, for example, your brain is confronted with a massive influx of unpredictable information.
Total chaos.
Right. You don't know how the chords interact. You don't understand the music theory. Your fingers literally don't know where to go on the fretboard because it's entirely unpredictable. Your brain is fully engaged, just firing on all cylinders to map this new territory.
It loves that unpredictability.
But then, once your brain solves the core pattern, once you grasp the basic mechanics of how guitar playing fundamentally works, The unpredictability disappears.
The mystery is gone.
Yeah, the reward becomes predictable. And the moment it becomes predictable, the dopamine flatlines and the excitement vanishes. You don't quit because the guitar is too hard. You quit because it's no longer mentally stimulating.
That's spot on.
So are we basically treating these complex hobbies like a crossword puzzle? Like once we've filled in all the blanks and solved the underlying pattern, we don't keep writing over the letters. We just want a new puzzle.
It's a solid analogy, but let's take it a step further. It's like doing a complex Sunday crossword puzzle where halfway through, you suddenly realize the hidden theme connecting all the clues.
Oh, right, the meta puzzle.
Exactly. Once you crack that underlying theme, the rest of the puzzle isn't a mystery anymore. It's just data entry. And the highly intelligent brain absolutely despises data entry.
It's boring.
Beyond boring. Intellectual hunger prioritizes the unpredictable. It actively seeks out the unknown because the dopamine payout is highest when resolving a prediction error, when you encounter something you couldn't anticipate.
So this is very different from routine boredom. Routine boredom is just sitting in a waiting room with nothing to do.
Right. Intellectual hunger is when you have plenty of physical tasks you could be doing, like practicing guitar scales, but none of them require your brain to build new neural pathways.
You're just tracing over old lines.
Yeah. High awareness minds are constantly seeking to construct new models of reality. The moment a system is mapped, understood, and tucked away in the brain's database, the cognitive return on investment plummets.
Your brain just says, got it, the territory's mapped, moving on. It doesn't care that your fingers haven't actually mastered the physical skill of playing the song yet.
The physical mastery is irrelevant to the curiosity system.
Because you've mapped the path, so you don't feel any biological urge to actually walk it.
The brain draws a very hard line between cognitive mastery and physical execution. For a hyperactive intellect, mapping the territory is the entire point of the exercise. Walking the path is just repetitive physical labor, which honestly feels agonizingly slow compared to the speed of thought.
Okay, hold on. I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
I completely buy that learning the guitar is fun until you figure out the basic chords and then it gets boring. But what about the times I buy the guitar, bring it home, and it literally never even leaves the case?
Oh, the unopened box.
Yeah. Or I buy the gardening supplies and never open the bags of soil. I haven't decoded any physical patterns there. I haven't mapped the fretboard. How does the curiosity system explain quitting before you even start?
Well, because you did start. You just did it entirely in your head.
Wait, what?
Yeah. The human brain is, at its core, a highly sophisticated simulation machine. We have this unique ability to visualize complex future scenarios.
So my imagination counts as starting.
Neurologically, yes. When you intensely visualize learning a skill, when you spend 3 days researching the perfect soil pH, visualizing the layout of the garden, imagining the harvest, your brain is actively processing that mental simulation.
That's wild.
And the neural pathways fire in very similar ways, whether you are doing the action or vividly imagining it. It releases small, steady streams of satisfaction that genuinely trick your nervous system into feeling like you've already made tangible progress. You are pre-experiencing the win.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, so just by daydreaming about being a master gardener and researching the tools, our brain registers that as actual labor?
Yes, it registers the cognitive effort.
Doesn't that mean our high intelligence is actually working against us? Like we are making ourselves mentally exhausted before we even pick up a shovel?
This raises an important question. Think about your last abandoned project, the one still sitting in your closet right now.
I have a few.
Right, but what stands out to you about it? Was it the physical difficulty of the work that stopped you? Or had your brain already entirely moved on after simulating the outcome?
It's definitely the latter. I just lost the drive.
Because the research highlights the double-edged sword of high cognitive complexity. When an intelligent person approaches a new hobby, they aren't just thinking, I will put a seed in the dirt.
No, of course not.
They are running a massive, complex simulation. They are analyzing the sunlight angles, calculating the watering schedules, predicting potential pest infestations, and optimizing the harvest timeline.
You're running a 10-year crop rotation strategy in your head before you've even bought a trowel.
Exactly.
You've played the entire movie in your mind, start to finish. So why bother going to the theater to actually shoot it?
Exactly. And we severely underestimate the caloric cost of that kind of thinking.
The actual physical energy it takes to think.
Yes. The brain consumes about 20% of your body's energy, despite being a fraction of its weight. Running those high-level simulations is biologically exhausting.
So you're literally tired.
Very. By the time the weekend rolls around and you actually need to go outside, get your hands dirty, and do the repetitive, slow, sometimes uncomfortable physical labor, your brain has lost all its urgency.
The thrill is gone.
It has already experienced the emotional high of the win mentally, and it has absolutely drained your energy reserves doing so.
Wow. It's pure mental exhaustion, masquerading as physical laziness.
Yeah.
The actual work feels incredibly tedious because, neurologically speaking, you are already standing at the finish line.
This is the exact point where people mislabel themselves as flaky or undisciplined. It isn't a lack of energy, it's a profound misallocation of energy.
It's all spent on the front end.
The cognitive bandwidth was entirely spent on the simulation and mapping phase. When the physical execution phase finally arrives, which is inherently slower, clumsier, and far more repetitive than the speed of human thought, the brain rebels.
It just says no.
It simply refuses to allocate any more precious energy to a problem it already considers solved.
That is a massive reframe. The failure isn't in the lack of execution. The execution just wasn't the brain's actual goal in the first place. The goal was the mental exercise.
Precisely.
But, I mean, even with that understanding, how do we view this whole cycle as anything other than a net negative? We've established the dopamine rush of the decode, the mental simulation trap, and the resulting cognitive exhaustion. It still looks like a string of failures.
I get why it looks that way.
But the research actually transitions from this perceived failure to a really empowering idea. This behavior isn't a bug in our software. It's actually a highly efficient organizational tool.
It is a brilliant mechanism of selective organization. Highly intelligent minds simply do not distribute their energy equally across all tasks or interests. To do so would be incredibly inefficient.
You burn out instantly.
Exactly. Instead, they utilized intense, laser-like focus during that initial obsession phase.
You see this all the time. During that first week, you become incredibly organized. You build complex spreadsheets for your new hobby.
Like the spreadsheets are mandatory.
Yeah, and you have dozens of categorized bookmarks. You know exactly what obscure gear to buy. Your focus is absolute and completely locked in.
Right. The brain is devoting maximum resources to the problem. But the critical piece of this cognitive architecture is what happens the moment after the problem is solved.
The drop-off.
Yes. Once that curiosity is satisfied and the fundamental pattern of the hobby is decoded, the brain ruthlessly reallocates that cognitive bandwidth to something it finds more valuable. It actively cuts off the energy supply to the old hobby to free up space.
So what does this all mean? If our brains are just ruthlessly reallocating cognitive bandwidth the moment they get bored, is being flaky actually a hyper-efficient survival skill in a world that is just overflowing with information?
That's a great way to put it.
It sounds like a computer aggressively managing its RAM.
Yeah.
Like you open a massive, heavy software program, run the complex calculations you need, and then you force quit the program entirely so the system doesn't crash, leaving all that memory open for the next big task.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes, that RAM analogy is spot on. But consider the environment we live in today. We are surrounded by an infinite, non-stop barrage of complex information.
It's overwhelming.
Completely. If a highly aware, deeply curious person committed fully and physically to every single thing that piqued their intellectual interest, they would be utterly paralyzed.
They just freeze up.
They would never get anything done. Selective organization allows these minds to gather diverse skills and deep understandings very quickly without getting bogged down. They dive in, extract the underlying logic, decode the core pattern, and get out. It is a biological imperative to stay mentally agile.
And if you don't get out, they stagnate.
Exactly. The research explicitly frames this rapid shift as a necessary biological push from consumption to creation.
Okay, explain that transition.
Well, during the obsession phase, you are in pure consumption mode. You are absorbing tutorials, reading articles, buying gear. But once the pattern is decoded, the brain expects you to use that new framework to solve a novel problem, to create something.
To put it to use.
Right. If you don't transition that knowledge into active creation, the brain cuts the dopamine and forces you to move on to consume a new pattern. It is terrified of stagnation.
Wow. It's like you're gathering puzzle pieces from a dozen completely different boxes.
That's a beautiful way to visualize it.
Yeah, like you don't actually need to finish every individual puzzle to see the picture. You're just studying how the different types of pieces interlock. And suddenly, because you've force quit all these different hobbies, you develop this incredibly broad, cross-disciplinary understanding of how the world works.
You build a massive mental library.
Exactly. You understand the spatial reasoning and strategy of chess, you grasp the botanical chemistry of gardening, and you know the structural physics of woodworking.
And if you look historically, the people who drive society forward, the ones who truly innovate, are almost always the people who can synthesize information across multiple
In
disciplines.
general,
Yes, they see the hidden connections that the hyper-focus specialists miss. Their selective bandwidth allows them to be intellectual generalists in the absolute best sense of the word. Because their brain forces them to move on when the unpredictability fades, it guarantees they are always operating at maximum cognitive engagement. They are serial deep divers.
so as we pull all these threads together, the core message from our deep dive today is a radical reframe of how you view your own mind.
It really is a paradigm shift.
Yeah, if you are listening to this right now and nodding along, thinking about your own closet or garage full of abandoned projects, you need to hear this. Your graveyard of hobbies is actually a beautiful, complex map of your curiosity.
It's evidence of a hungry mind.
You aren't failing to finish. You are successfully learning. Your brain seeks out the unknown, gets the massive dopamine reward from decoding the underlying pattern, mentally simulates the success, and then highly efficiently reallocates your cognitive bandwidth to the next grand puzzle.
It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Right. Once the lesson is over, your mind is simply ready for the next challenge. These supposed quirks, this tendency to be labeled by your friends or family as flaky or unfocused, are actually hidden strengths. It's the hallmark of a highly intelligent, intensely curious mind operating exactly as it was designed to.
It completely shifts the paradigm from shame to empowerment. Once you understand the mechanism, you stop fighting the neurology.
You work with it instead of against it.
Exactly. And it leaves us with something quite radical to consider. If your brain's ultimate goal is decoding complex patterns rather than routine execution, what would happen if you stopped forcing yourself to be a specialist?
Just lean into the chaos.
Yeah, what if you actively designed your career or your entire lifestyle to be a series of intentional, high-intensity, short-term obsessions? Could the very traits society so eagerly dismisses as flaky actually be the exact cognitive architecture required to navigate and innovate in the rapidly changing future?